We'll see a lot about Nat Turner, the freedom fighter, because it was on this day, ladies and gentlemen, that Nat Turner from Southampton, Virginia, was in fact captured. Notice I said the freedom fighter. I mean, when you're enslaved and you're seeking to liberate yourself from those who enslave you, you're a freedom fighter. Don't believe it? Just ask any one of those individuals who were enslaved, or those who were servants to King George during the Revolutionary War. Many of you, I've already shared with you what took place here in that great rebellion. You see, Nat Turner and his cohorts were, in fact, rebels. Some 70 strong enslaved and free people of color participated, and that happened back in August. He had thought that he would make the attack on the 4th of July, for obvious reasons. Well, he got ill and was not able to do that, and then an eclipse occurred, and as a result of the moon blocking out the sun, making Southampton dark, Nat Turner saw it as a sign and attack. He really did attack. Spared very few people, with the exception of those individuals who were dirt farmers. Believe it or not, the poor white trash, as they have been called here in the South, not by me, but by those individuals who were not poor and white. Well, not poor anyway, but white, in quotes. He spared them. Turner said this, he says, poor inhabitants thought no better of themselves than they did of Negroes. How about that? I didn't know that. Before it was all over, Nat Turner and his men summarily killed approximately, let's see, 6. I'll get the actual number here. Approximately 47 men, women, and children were killed. Of course, Nat Turner also spared as many children as he could, but not those individuals who were old enough to understand what they were doing. What was interesting about this attack is that they, meaning those enslaved, the freedom fighters, thought that carrying rifles was too cumbersome. Most of the killings they did was with knives, hatchets, and axes. You didn't see that on the movie, Birth of a Nation, at least the second one. You ever wondered what he looked like? Got a description here, an older description of what Nat Turner looked like. Listen very closely. And my reason for sharing this, ladies and gentlemen, is to hopefully bring to life in the minds of we who have survived this, particularly those African Americans out there who see Nat Turner as just a Nat Turner. Well, he was a man. He stood 5 foot 6 inches, 5 foot 8, 5 foot 6, somewhere in there. Weighed 168 pounds to 173 pounds. He was rather bright, as we call it, not to be confused with light complexion. So what I'm gathering here, he was not exactly as light as you, Ro, but because he wasn't mulatto. He was about hushy-bar color. You know what I mean? I mean, he wasn't African, but he was slightly African. He had broad shoulders, a large flat nose, which is pretty common. See that? Yeah, I mean, if by chance you've got the complexion like, what's the King, Sean King? It did give away. I mean, he could pass because he's got the gray eyes, but it's the nose and lips that gives him away, pretty much like you. And then, of course, that hair down by your neck.
Yeah, it kind of curls up.
And the peas, we call them. Kitchens. Peas in the kitchens. So Nat Turner had a large, flat nose, large eyes, bulging eyes, broad, flat feet, and he had rather knock knees. I've never imagined him. I was thinking he'd be bow-legged. Kind of a bold thing. I mean, that. Of course, they didn't ride horses, so I guess he wouldn't be bold.
Oh, no.
Actually, ladies and gentlemen, I know that comes from a child walking too early. I thought they would be walking early, He walks brisk and active all the time with his knock knee. That had to look sort of like a penguin. His hair on the top of his head was very, very thin. He had no beard. And whether you know it or not, ladies and gentlemen, many those of us who are African descent are hairless. For obvious reasons. I mean, when you're located in and around the equator, you know, you don't, the hair on your head would be more like insulation. You know, you've noticed Caucasians, those in the Caucasus Mountains, have layered hair, so it lays down to protect them from the cold. I mean, I'm going to tell you, Mother Nature, God, you know, understood this very, very well. That's why the nostrils on the Africans were very, very wide, because the humid climates. And so, therefore, you were able to inhale quite a bit. The air was heavier. And, of course, in cooler climates, your nose needs to be thinner because of the fact that it's cooler. And in the cool air, you got it. I don't give Nat Turner credit for this. Genealogy. And I've studied a little bit of that. But the natural progress of man. There's also explanations for why you find slanted eyes in Asia and so forth. But that's another show. So continuing with Nat Turner, he was hairless for the most part, except for he had a very nice cropped mustache, bro. Just above his upper lip.
I appreciate that.
And the top of his chin. So he had that right there. So that little
soul
flat.
patch.
Yeah, man, you gotta have that unless you're cool. You know. However, he had a scar on his temples. And his temples plural. I don't know why that was. Maybe they would wear this bonnet sometimes when you tried to escape. He also, let's see, he had head scars on the back of his neck. A large knot on one of the bones of his right arm, probably near his wrist, and that was produced by a blow on his wrist. So now you know what he looks like. So that now you can let your imagination run wild. All right, folks, I'm sure you've already heard the top stories. I've got it right here. I'm going to show it to you. See that right there? Now, you're going to see it in reverse for those who are looking at it on Facebook, you know, because it's a mirror image, right? So you're going to say, oh, Rip, that's backwards. I'm holding it right, but it's a mirror image. Just want to let you know that I actually have, thanks to my incredibly thorough staff, we actually have the actual indictment. For those of you who don't know this, a grand jury indictment is from everyday citizens like you and I, right? What happens is a special counsel will go in and present evidence to everyday people, a panel of jurors. This panel of jurors will look at the evidence, everyday Americans, registered voters, and those everyday Americans will say, so this is what you got in the way of evidence, Mueller? Well, I think there's reason to charge it. Now, an indictment, ladies and gentlemen, contrary to what you might believe, does not say you did anything wrong. It just simply says there's enough evidence to charge you. And boy, were they charged. Some 12 charges against Paul Manafort, Jr., the former campaign chairman of the sitting president, Donald John Demorod. And as well as that, Richard W. Gates III. Now, Richard W. Gates III continued to work with Donald John after Paul Manafort resigned. And this is going back to right after the convention over the summer. Now, the indictment says this, it will serve years as political consultants and lobbyists between at least 2006 and 2015. Manafort and Gates acted as unregistered agents of the government of the Ukraine. The party of region, blah, 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 blah. It goes into it spells out everything and talks about the mere fact that these two individuals were in fact conducting a scheme. Manafort and Gates generated tens of millions of dollars in income as a result of their Ukraine work in order to hide Ukraine payments from the United States authorities from approximately 2006 through 2016. Manafort and Gates laundered money through scores of United States and foreign corporations and partnerships and bank accounts. Now listen to me very closely. This is how you capture high dollar criminals. Bro, you follow the money.
Always.
You follow the money, and the money will tell the truth. This all came down, ladies and gentlemen. This all came down from this right here. This thing.
I have no relationship with him. I do have a relationship with him. I have no relationship with him. He has said nice things about me over the years. I remember years ago he said something, many years ago. He said very nice things about me, but I have no relationship with him. When I went to Russia with the Miss Universe pageant, he contacted me and was so nice. I have no relationship with Putin. I don't think I've ever met him. I never met him. I was in Russia. I was in Moscow recently, and I spoke indirectly and directly with President Putin, who could not have been nicer. I have never spoken to him on the phone, no.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me just tell you, this is extraordinary. Because what Mueller did was start at the top. The closest connection to Russia is, in fact, Paul Manafort. When you saw the checks, which I have here in this file, the copies of the checks written from a Russian oligarch, which is basically a Russian strongman, you know, millionaire, billionaire. And that's what oligarchs are, you know, plutocrats like our sitting president. Folks, this is all about money here. And so this guy is the top of the top. And this is interesting for me. There are those who are going to come forward and say, oh yeah, what does this have to do with Donald John? This was Donald John's campaign chairman. I want you guys to really let that soak in. It was his campaign chairman until July 2016. And he still indicated that he had communications with Paul Manafort. But what's more telling, and you look through this indictment, it was a conspiracy, get this, against the United States. Serious. Now, folks, don't be misled. There are those, oh yeah, well this is just about politics. When you hear Donald John say that, trust me, it's just about politics for him. In other words, that is all, this whole thing with Hillary Clinton and the investigation, all of this is manipulation on his part. I'm also holding here the dossier, the Trump dossier. That Trump dossier that was started, the investigation by a Republican nominee, that Hillary Clinton's campaign decided to purchase as well. Keeping in mind they didn't do the investigation, they just purchased the dossier of the MI6 agent from London. By the way, I want you to understand that that dossier was also subpoenaed by Mueller, the special counsel. And most of it, what was in this dossier has come to be found accurate. Now, I want you to understand what I just said. See, the dossier, some of the salacious things there have simply not been proven. It has been indicated by this British agent that Vladimir Putin had the goods on Donald John. They've not proved that yet. This whole salacious stuff involving prostitutes. Can't find the prostitutes. I don't know whether anyone's looking for them, but I'm just simply saying that the dossier is broken down, ladies and gentlemen, into like reports. Report number 80, report number, let's see, 94, 95. I've got them all here. And I've read through these. Very telling. The meetings that were taking place between staffers with Vladimir Putin and Donald John. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is before Donald John ran for office. We're going back to 2011. Actually, even before then, but especially during 2011 when he was contemplating running. Contemplating. Now, folks, I get the impression most often that many of those individuals out there who, I guess, listen to oxyconservative talk, you see this as a game. It's not. This is no political game for Rip Daniels. This is about my country. If you take the view that your president is more important than your country, then trust me, then you and I we won't have a lot to talk about. You see, our country is our country in as much as there's a constitution and there's checks and balances. The election has happened. That's over. That's done as far as I'm concerned. If Donald John is impeached or leaves office or whatever, we still are going to have a country, and more than likely Mike Pence or someone else will take over. The point to Rip Daniels here is that we cannot let a foreign government influence our country or take it over, as Khrushchev said in the 1960s. We will defeat America from within. Paraphrasing. By the way, I was around there. That's serious. I would have thought that it couldn't happen. I would have thought that maybe we're talking about some kind of conventional warfare whereby, they'll go in and sabotage and do this, but that's not where we are here. You see, controlling the country is in as much as you control the money of that country. And that's exactly what I think Vladimir Putin and others have their eyes on. That's where this is coming from. As I look through this initial indictment, it brings up some rather interesting areas here. And look, I don't doubt that these guys, look, far better than Rip Daniels, have done it. I'm just going to kind of show you this. They were referring to this as a scheme. Throughout the charges, it is a scheme. Let's see. Okay, here we'll start here on page number 2. In furtherance of the scheme, Manafort and Gates funneled millions of dollars in payments into foreign nominee companies. Foreign nominee companies. As well as banks. They opened by them and their accomplices and so forth. And it goes in and says it from Cyprus to you name it. All the way down. In furtherance of the scheme again, number 3. Manafort and Gates concealed from the United States their work as agents of and millions of dollars in payments from Ukraine and its political parties and leaders. Who are the political parties? These are the parties, ladies and gentlemen, who sought to overthrow the Western-backed president of Ukraine. NATO-backed. You realize there's a civil war going on there now. In furtherance of the scheme, number 4 says Manafort used his hidden overseas wealth to enjoy a lavish lifestyle in the United States without paying taxes on that income. Oh, we talking tax evasion here. I'm going to tell you, folks. And then it spells out all the relevant companies. Here are the relevant companies here. I don't know if you can see these pages here. For you folks who are looking on Facebook, yes, they're backwards. But Ro, can you put? I know that you put it on our Facebook page where our audience. Yeah. Give the link for the indictment. Just take a little time because unlike you guys, I mean we're news. Should I say not news? We are a news-related organization, so therefore we'll be first in line, and there's a long line there. But nevertheless, just go ahead and put in, see if you can get it. I'm looking at maybe 10, 12 companies here. Some incorporated from Florida all the way to Delaware. I don't doubt that Mueller is probably now taking the pen and associating these. Basically, got Florida, Virginia, and Delaware, and New York. I don't doubt he's taking the pen and he's matching up these companies with where Donald John's shell companies were. I don't doubt that. Then, of course, he even lays down. See this? You guys, you probably can't see that. I'll put it like that. See that right there? And you sing it backwards again, but this guy, I mean, they've gone in and laid out the actual contributions and or money laundering. I mean, all the way down. I've got at least 5, 6. I've got at least 4 pages here that spells out the vendors and who received what. Then number 18, it is illegal to act as an agent of a foreign principal engaged in certain United States influence activities without registering the affiliation. Specifically, a person who engages in lobbying or public relations work in the United States for a foreign principal, such as the government of Ukraine or the party of the regions, is required to provide a detailed written registration statement to the United States Department of Justice, and that was not happening. And by the way, this has happened, at least Kirshner has had to come in and amend his statements, 3, 4, 5, 7 times. Flynn did not amend his to indicate he was working for a foreign government. The filing made under oath, once you do this, you file under oath. I underscored under oath for a good reason. Because, ladies and gentlemen, that under oath means that if in fact you lied under oath, you do know that's perjury. When you raise that hand and swear that what you're saying is what it is, you don't have to be in court. It's perjury. You must disclose the name of the foreign principal, and that didn't happen. So I'm looking at 12 counts here. To conceal the scheme, Manafort and Gates developed a false and misleading cover story that would distance themselves and the government of the Ukraine. So what does this have to do with Donald John? This is Donald John's campaign chair. This is the guy that Donald John said, hey, Russia, give me the 33 emails, 33,000 emails. This is the guy who Donald John had sent his Paul Manafort and his son-in-law. We're not talking about subordinates here. We got the campaign chair and the son-in-law
Family.
beckoning to get information on Hillary Clinton. By the way, I don't see anything wrong with that. Let me tell you what I see something's wrong. You lied about it. You're lying about it. Why did Donald John from the very start lie about it? He should have just come clean. Is it unusual for a president to have these kinds of relations? I mean, staff members and all with Russia? Yeah, it is. But if there's a reasonable explanation, give it. Don't lie about it. He even lied that he knew anything about it, but he did. He did know about it.
I own nothing in Russia. I have no loans in Russia. I don't have any deals in Russia. I have nothing to do with Russia. To the best of my knowledge, no person that I deal with. Russia is fake news.
Well, if it was fake news, then your guy would not be indicted, would it? I'm just saying the chips are going to fall where they may, but this is how the chips fall. You do realize it was actually a money transaction that brought down Tricky Dick Nixon. You see, there was $10,000 bribery that was sent out in an effort to try to cover up. That's why they call it the Watergate cover-up. In an effort to silence one of the individuals involved, and that individual said, no, I'm not going to take this $10,000 and shut up. That money was traced back to one Tricky Dick Nixon, and he left office. What's interesting about this whole thing is that Mueller answers to the Justice Department, and although Jeff Sessions has taken himself off the case, put it that way, he still knows. I don't doubt the White House knew this sometime last week that this was coming down. I guarantee you.
Based on Sessions' access to the information.
Well, absolutely. And I think that's also what fueled this. The House has got to start this investigation of Hillary, Obama, the Russia connection. This is also, ladies and gentlemen, while you hear Oxford Conservative Talk Radio doing the same. Now again, this has nothing to do with get Donald John. Donald John will be dead and gone, and we're going to still have a country. I hope. That's what this is about. Don't get it twisted. For the sake of the country, not the election, screw the election. For the sake of the country, we need to get to the bottom of this. If Donald John did nothing wrong, fine. But you don't have this kind of fraternization with a foreign enemy. You just don't have this. I mean, it's been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that it was the Russians who favored Donald John over Hillary Clinton. Why? This is going back to 2006, and the information regarding 2011 is very, very telling to me. Because that's when Donald John, ladies and gentlemen, was in fact, according to the dossier, being offered. No confirmation that he accepted any kind of campaign money or the like. To his credit. But this has nothing to do with him. I want to make that very clear. This has more to do with my country. Long after Donald John. I don't like where the pieces are on the chessboard, and I've expressed that time and time again. But what you have here, the connection that you have in the very beginning stages, was in as much as Donald John did not come clean.
I have no relationship with him. I do have a relationship with him. I have no relationship with him. He has said nice things about me over the years. I remember years ago, he said something many years ago. He said very nice things about me, but I have no relationship with him. When I went to Russia with the Miss Universe pageant, he contacted me and was so nice. I have no relationship with Putin. I don't think I've ever met him. I never met him. I was in Russia. I was in Moscow recently, and I spoke indirectly and directly with President Putin, who could not have been nicer. I have never spoken to him on the phone, no.
And here's a guy who tweeted out, so I can pardon anybody I want. Can I even pardon myself? Who said that? You know, I said the same thing about O.J. Simpson. He didn't act innocent very well. I'm just saying, though. So, yeah, we're going to talk about it only because that's what we do. And, look, I want you to keep an open mind. This is not an I got you moment. This is an indictment. It just simply says there's enough evidence to charge. And there have been two of, get this, Donald John's closest advisors have been charged. Now, you've got to ask yourself, here's a guy who appoints people to the highest positions in the country. Does that not reflect on his character and his ability to evaluate people? I mean, as a CEO myself, I mean, the people I hire reflect on me. How many people have left this guy's office in the first 100 days? What are we up to, about 8? Under shady reasons, and in some cases fired by him. But mostly those who are in his, I mean, how many, he still right now has to try to replace 2 on his cabinet, doesn't he?
He does.
There's something eerily wrong here. You tell me what. Good morning, 2 Cents. How are you?
There's something eerily wrong. All this happened 12 years ago, Rip.
Are you understanding how English, when I said to you...
before Barack Obama was elected.
You do understand that the indictment says between 2006 and 2017.
I haven't read the indictment. I've watched a little bit.
Well, you obviously...
I watched a little bit of Rachel Maddow.
Well, you obviously don't listen very well. You don't listen very well, and I don't want you to simply make a fool of yourself. Maybe you should go ahead and look at it.
Conspiracy.
I can tell you what
I'm making a fool of myself.
Let me tell you what I think here. And this is what I think. I think that Russia has infiltrated our election process.
Facebook? Really?
No, it's not just Facebook. You got to understand.
What's the evidence?
Russian's guy won. The Russian guy won.
Russia's guy won.
Well, did he or did he not?
He was elected by the United States people.
You do understand, however, that the one they wanted to win
Not one
won.
Russian voted for him.
You do understand that the one they wanted to win won. Why? Why him?
Why they didn't want Hillary to win?
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and bid you adieu if we can't have a decent conversation.
He didn't do. You're looking at. You're hyping all this up and nothing.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, 2 Cents. That's about all I'll give you for that. And it really is troubling, 2 Cents. I don't know how any patriotic American can't look at this and say there's something wrong here. This has very little to do with Donald John for Rep. Daniels. It has more to do with the manipulation of Russia and this country. Why? What is there? Look, they don't just do this just for general principles now. It's not just on GP. There's a reason here. What's the target? I can tell you what the target is in my view. The dominance. That doesn't mean that you're going to have Russian tanks going down Pennsylvania Avenue. It does mean that they could place themselves, the Russians can place themselves in a position whereby they become, quote unquote, the superpower and can push the buttons. The guy they favored is the same guy we would expect to push the button if they push the button on us in a intercontinental ballistic missile test. You understand what I'm saying? That doesn't bother you, 2 cents. I saw the same thing, ladies and gentlemen, back in the 60s. Same thing. As long as you said segregation, then you were in. Really, in the state of Mississippi. You know, going back to, I mean, from Waller to Paul B. Well, from Paul B. Johnson to Waller, all the way up to Winter, William Winter, who, by the way, have seen the era of that way, hopefully. So it seems. Still hadn't told us where the bodies are buried. Makes me wonder. But this is about my country. You've got everyday American citizens, 2 cents, have come out and indicated 12 charges against the president's top people. And suggest there's more. Says it right here. Collaborated with others in this scheme. I know you can't accept that. I know you can't. It's okay. There are those of us who are real Americans who will accept whatever this leads. We'll be back.
The Jackson Advocate newspaper has been the voice of black Mississippians since 1938. The Jackson Advocate wants to come into your home each week and keep you informed of local, state, national, and world events. To subscribe today, call 601-948-4122 or email